Hey everyone, it's Dan from The Plague. I'm joined again by Nels, and we are going to be talking about the new album by the Scorpions. If you don't know who the Scorpions are, well, that's just kind of sad, and you should definitely check them out. Because
I weep for you.
yeah, they've been around for what, like 40, 50 years, something crazy.
I don't like doing that math, but yes, something like
Yeah.
that.
So yeah, it's been a few years since they've done a new album, and this one has been they've been really pushing it a lot. So yes, you've got the CD, I've got the LP here,
Yes.
and so yeah, let's just start by talking about kind of like what our expectations were, and like what our past experience with the band and that kind of thing. I'll let you kick that off.
Okay. I have to say that the Scorpions throughout pretty much their entire career, one of my favorite bands ever. Like, the early stuff, the In Trance and so many good early albums. Really love that their very original metal sound mixed with some really, hard rock influenced stuff. Always had great guitar playing. Throughout history, one of my favorite bands. And certainly Blackout to this day. I go back and listen to that album and it's just amazing. And for this, when I heard they were doing a new album, I did not know what to think. There are a ton of bands that have not aged well, to put it bluntly. And like you said, the Scorpions have been around forever. So, I did not know if this was, sort of a last cashing in type of a thing or what it was. So I did not know what to expect, and they sort of trickled out some songs. And I have to say, I was very optimistic after hearing them. To me, one of the big wild cards going into this was, how does Klaus really sound now? In my opinion, he's one of the most original, standout metal vocalists ever. But let's face it, we're all getting old. Vocal cords, you never know, right? And I have to say, when those first couple songs came out, I was like, damn, that guy sounds great still, like really great. And so, when the actual album came out and I listened to the whole thing, that was one of the things that stood out to me is Klaus just sounds fantastic still. He's really, it's not like he hasn't aged and matured and everybody changes as they go through that process. But yeah, he just sounds great. And in general, the first thing that jumped out at me when I listened to the whole album was everything's like really well recorded. It's very punchy sounding. Everything's super clear. Didn't sound overproduced, which, another kind of fear that you might have of sort of a comeback album or, whatever, is that the band might not have a bunch of control. They might go for a really elaborate recording. There might be some production that isn't what's called for, but no, I thought this sounded great. The guitars sound great. The drums sound great. Everything's, if anything, it's a little bit sparse, but that means you can hear everything. The bass, the drums, everything sounds really good. I have to say, though, my first impression as a package, it left me a little bit flat. I wasn't sure that it was super standout. But as I've listened to it more, every time I listen to it, I get a little bit more into it. And to me, the individual pieces start standing out a little bit more, to the point where now I really like this album. And I feel like the more I listen to it, it's one of those albums, the more I listen to it, the more that I will actually appreciate it.
Yeah, I had a similar reaction. Like, my expectations were guarded, I would say, because
Guarded. Good
the
word.
last couple albums they put out, and it's been a while even since those, but they were okay. Like, there were some decent songs on them, but like there was nothing that really stood out, and they didn't really have that classic Scorpions sound to them. which I think
Yes.
when you mentioned the production, that like they really brought back that sound, but in a really powerful, clean, modern way. And it's like I'm amazed
Yeah.
they did it. And I think they were supposed to work with Greg Fidelman. They were supposed to record in LA, but then the pandemic hit, so they couldn't. But so they ended up kind of having to just, you know, kind of do it themselves in Germany. And man, it made all the difference in the world, I think, because it sounds so much better than the last like 5 albums, you know,
Yeah.
at least. But yeah, the songs that they released ahead of time were they were all pretty strong. It showed like a good variety, which is another thing that Scorpions always like really had with their albums.
Yes.
And again, like the first listen through or two, it was kind of like, okay, there's some good songs and there's some not so great songs or kind of forgettable songs. But even those are starting to kind of grow on me a little bit more as I give it more spin. So yeah, initial impression was guarded, but optimistic, and I think it's lived up to that. So let's actually dive into the songs and kind of talk about each song a little bit. The album kicks off with Gas in the Tank, which and again, when I first saw the track listing for this album, I was kind of like, oh, some of these titles don't sound great. And Gas in the Tank, not a great title, but it's got that kind of Can't Live Without You kind of mid-tempo kind of rocker. And I think it's a pretty good opening song. Like not the greatest lyrics, but you know, Scorpions have always been kind of hit and miss in that department. So
Yeah, honestly, that's one of the areas that the songs that I still, or the songs and the pieces of songs that I still don't appreciate that much are because of the lyrics.
which is funny because we've talked so much about like how lyrics are kind of the least important element, but it's like when it's a classic band like this, you kind of hyper focus on that.
Well, and also some of them are like there's one lyric in particular that stands out to me, and that's "Brother from Another Mother," and I'm like, oh
Yeah,
but we'll get to that.
Yeah. All right.
Yeah. Gas in the Tank, go ahead.
Yeah, okay. Roots in My Boots. Second song kind of reminded me a little bit of, it has that blackout riff at the start. Clearly not as good as that song. And again, the chorus, I think, was a little bit of a letdown on that one.
Yeah. I think there's several of the songs where their chorus is just, it's like they kind of, everything gets a little bit less dense, and there's just kind of a chord, you know, real simple chord progression in several of the choruses, and it just kind of like takes a song that's pretty like, I mean, I tend to like the kind of the more up-tempo, more rocking songs anyway, and it kind of like, wait a second, wait, now I get back into the verse, and they do that a couple times.
It kind of deflates the energy that
which I thought about Gas in the Tank as well. It was kind of like, at first I'm like, oh, this is a pretty good song, and I still think it's a good song, but when we got to the chorus I was like, yeah, kind of a letdown. But yeah, Roots in My Boots, again, the lyrics, it sounds so like throwaway, you know what I mean?
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
Knock 'Em Dead, that one kind of reminded me of some of the weaker songs on Crazy World, actually, like Tease Me, Please Me.
Yes.
That kind of
thing. There's one song on Crazy World, which I can't think of which one it is, that also reminds me of Big City Nights. And this song reminds me of both of those songs. It's like they've got this, something that the Scorpions kind of do and get away with it throughout their careers. They'll have a riff that's almost self-referential. You're like, oh, that's so the Scorpions. If anyone else did that, I'd be like, oh, they're ripping off the Scorpions. Yeah. But it kind of, I guess it's, to me, at first I go, oh, that sounds really similar to this other riff, but generally by the time I've listened to it a few times, it's like, well, it's not the same as the other riff. So, and then they are that same band, so it sounds fine. But yeah, that definitely reminded me of other Scorpions songs.
Yeah, and they do a thing where, like, even if it's a familiar kind of riff, like the way the vocal melodies and the rhythm and stuff, like it's always different enough where it's not like, okay, that's just a rip off of some previous song. Like with the Black Sabbath album 13, there was a lot of songs on there that were just like, okay, this sounds exactly like, you know, whatever from their early albums, and this doesn't really do that for me. Like these I think stand on their own a lot better.
Yeah, it's like the riff itself, it sounds familiar, but it's not like it's a copy of the other song for sure. And it's not what I was hoping for, which was a cover of Motley Crue's Knock 'em Dead Kid, but you know, can't have everything.
Rock Believer, one of the songs they released ahead of time. This is kind of more of an upbeat rocker. Chorus is I think a pretty strong chorus, even if the lyrics are a little bit cringy. Scream for me, screamer.
Right.
Rock Believer. It's like, okay.
At first I thought he was saying streamer, and it was like such a very YouTube type of a thing. It's like, all right. Yeah, it's very Scorpions though. Very, very Scorpions.
It is, yeah.
And it's one of those songs where I just keep thinking Klaus sounds great.
Yeah, you mentioned that, and that was something I was going to mention when we got to the performance side of it. Was that was the one thing that stood out for me too? Was just like, this guy is not aged. Like it's crazy how. I mean, you listen to like Bruce Dickinson, Rob Halford, Biff Byford, whoever, and it's like you can tell that they've changed. They're
even Dio,
good. Dio, even
yeah.
Klaus, man.
Yeah, he's amazing.
Okay, Shining of Your Soul is another one that they released ahead of time, and it's to me like one of the first like really strong songs on here.
Mm-hmm.
It reminds me a lot of Is There Anybody There?
Yes, it's got that reggae kind of
from Love Drive. Really cool song, and I think the lyrics are actually pretty good too. It's one of the ones that didn't bother me.
Right. Yeah, I really like that song, and that's one thing that I've always liked about the Scorpions is they somehow throw in these other musical influences, which you wouldn't kind of expect from a straight ahead rock band, and they work. It's like Is There Anybody There? It's like I hear that and I always think, oh, this sounds different. To me, it sounds very reggae, and it's like, but it totally works.
Exactly. Seventh Son, the song you mentioned, the producer co-writing.
I believe that's the one. I hope I'm not incorrect.
I'll put up on the screen later. Yeah. Nels is wrong.
Nels is wrong once again, as per usual.
This was the one that they actually teased like 6 months ago when they showed the band like rehearsing all together.
Oh yeah, right.
Remember that? And it was like, wow, okay, this actually got my interest up that this could be a good album. And I love that song. It's got, people have compared it to China White. It's got that kind of like slow kind of plodding.
Yep.
But it's a great riff.
It's heavy.
It's super heavy. It's great chorus, great verses, like just the whole performances, everything about it.
Yeah. It even has like a pretty cool little intro part to it,
Yeah. It feels like, again at the end. It's very cool.
Yeah. And honestly, as far as that, like you mentioned that it was kind of the teaser, they just showed him in the studio playing. That was awesome. That was like a very it showed off here's some of the music that's coming, but it was super smart too, because it really piqued my interest for sure.
And I think that was one of the things they said they did differently on this album was like actually got together to play the songs a lot, before they went into the studio. So I don't know. That seems to help with bands doing that more, because it's kind of like the old school way of writing songs and really perfecting them.
Yeah, you would imagine it probably makes the recording process when you actually come to actually tracking the songs that much easier, because you've just played them a whole bunch,
Right.
But yeah, I bet doing it in Germany, I imagine they all live close enough, or at least they came close enough where they could actually do that. That was probably a big plus during the recording, I would imagine.
Hot and Cold. This was another one that I liked. It's got pretty heavy riff. Maybe not quite as memorable as some of the others, but
yeah. And I think this is the only, again, you may have to subtitle this. I think this is the only song that's actually, it's credited to Matthias Jabs.
Okay.
And yeah, he's one of my, despite the fact that I probably can't pronounce his name correctly.
No one can.
One of my favorite, like underrated guitar players ever. The guy is just really good. And yeah, this song has a heavy riff. Again, I thought the verse music was a little bit kind of like, the chorus comes back and it's great. I like this song though.
Yeah, you mentioned Matthias. That's a good point. He's always been like kind of in the shadow of Uli and Michael Schenker. So.
Yeah, which is just not at all fair. If you just listen to that guy on his own merits, he's amazing. He really nails the style, and just great solos, obviously.
Yeah, for sure. What is this? Oh, my bones to rest.
Oddly, yes. Yeah, strangely that you couldn't remember this one, because to me, this one is kind of one of the weaker songs on the album. I have to admit, it's one of the songs that's also growing on me the most, though.
Yeah, I would agree with that. In fact, when I wrote all these down, I noticed this morning that I'd forgotten that song on my list. So
it's kind of the ultimate review.
Yeah. But
yeah, to me, it felt a little bit rushed. Like maybe it was the idea of a song and hadn't been like perfected or worked on as much.
Yeah.
But again, as I listen to it more, I think it's more the complexities are coming out for me. But yeah, it felt a little bit rushed.
It's got a little bit more of that rock and roll sort of vibe too, which is
yes,
a little bit different from the rest of the album, but
which I applaud them for doing. Not just that was one of my fears on the album, is it was just be like no variety all the way through, and that's one of the places where the Scorpions usually have shown. Really, they're like,
Peacemaker, the first single they released, to me, one of the strongest songs on here. Like, it's just an out and out rock. Yeah. It just starts and ends like exactly where it should. It's just like to the point. Great lyrics.
It's the perfect single, and first single, I should say. And video, right? Yeah.
And sadly, very timely right now.
I know, right? I kept thinking that. Two things I think of when I listen to that song are, Peacemaker, obviously a terrible, it'd be nice right now to have some Peacemaker. And then when they say bury the Undertaker, I just can't help thinking of Accept's Undertaker. I don't know.
That's so funny.
Like another German band.
Those crazy Germans.
Like, they're calling them out. Which I doubt. I don't want to start anything.
That would be a great tour, though.
Yes, it would. I would love to see that tour.
Call of the Wild, another one that was a little forgettable for me.
I thought the chorus in particular drags a little bit on this one. I will say, though, that Klaus shows off some kind of range here that I was impressed with. I like his voice on this.
And then the last song on the standard album, which is the ballad "When You Know Where You Come From," and this I think was the last one they released as a single, like the fourth one. And I like this one. I've seen a lot of people complain about it, but I like Scorpions ballads in general, and this is, I think, one of the better ones. Like, it's got a very classic Scorpions feel to it. I think there was an interview where they were talking about how the acoustic version of it is the version that they originally wanted to do.
Oh.
And then the record label is like, well, maybe just record an electric version of it as well. And I'm glad they did, because I like the version way better.
I'm very glad they did. I had trepidation going into this because it is kind of slower and ballady, but it's also pretty moody. It's not like sappy at all. I like this song. I didn't expect to at first, but I definitely like it. And I totally agree that the Scorpions are one of those bands that can pull off a ballad type song and have it not like be the worst song in the album, right? Which so often seems like the case.
Right.
What's the go ahead, you're gonna say what the extra song is? I don't have an extra song on my
there's like 5 extra songs.
Oh, Jesus Christ.
Oh yeah. One of them is the acoustic version of the ballad. So
that's what I kind of figured.
I'll just run through these really quick then. Shoot for Your Heart. It's another like decent kind of middle of the road rocker. It's got a pretty cool bridge in it. When Tomorrow Comes, that's, I think, the most interesting one that I would have actually liked to see on the album. It's got kind of a spoken word delivery from Klaus, which is really different.
Interesting.
It's got like a really experimental sort of like repeating guitar thing. It has kind of that kind of vocal thing that they used to do in the 70s all the time.
Oh yeah.
So yeah, that one was really cool. Unleash the Beast was kind of forgettable, and then Crossing Borders was a little bit more of a bluesy song.
Oh, interesting.
That it was okay. Again, it's kind of grown on me. It didn't really do much for me at first, but it's got a cool chorus. So
that's cool.
Yeah.
Yeah, some of the song titles, they just sound like Scorpions Mad Libs. It's like, that works fine. Just stick all those words together.
Right. I was going to mention this in the intro, actually. I like that the title of the album is a reference to Steam Rock Fever.
Yeah. There were a couple like referential type things in some of the lyrics and stuff that I feel like I am not really even picking up on yet, all of them.
The artwork. This was something that when I first saw it, I had a pretty negative impression of it.
Yeah, I agree.
Once I kind of looked at it more in detail, it's pretty well done for what they were trying to do, I guess. And I feel like the colors, the red and yellow, make a good. It makes it stand out. Like if you see a bunch of album covers, it definitely stands out. But I guess considering some of their past album covers, it could be worse.
Oh yeah, yeah, no doubt. They've had some amazing album covers though too.
They really run the entire gamut of album art quality.
Yes, yeah. Sometimes on various versions of the same album.
Right. Yeah. So yeah, just to conclude, overall, I was quite happy with this album. I was. Not expecting it to be amazing, and it's not like, it's not the second coming of Blackout, but I mean, no one's going to do that. It's just
right.
For a band this far into their career and having put out, like, I think several pretty weak albums in the last 20 years or even 30 years. I mean,
right. Which was why when I was first saying, I've liked them throughout their entire, actually,
yeah, I mean,
some not so strong stuff in their career, but yeah.
I mean, like Pure Instinct and Face the Heat, they had like one or two good songs on them, but overall, just this is to me is the best album since Crazy World. So
yeah, I agree with that. I thought exactly the same thing. It's like, am I still gonna listen to In Trance and and Blackout and all those other albums probably more than this? Probably, not for a little while though. For a little while. I mean, this is a really good album. It's not the second coming of their heyday, but for where they're at right now, I think it's awesome.
And it's got little touches of the classic 80s stuff. It's got a few little bits from the 70s even. It's got that Crazy World where they kind of went more in that, I don't even know what you call that direction, but a little bit more commercial, but still quality songs. So it's very well rounded, and overall I think it's pretty good album.
Solid. Yeah. It's just, that's exactly how I think of it. I'm not super like over the top blown away, but I like it and it's good. And I'm glad that they made this album and not something cheaper and easier. And I'm just glad that they sound so great.
Yeah.
They really do. I mean,
considering they went on their, farewell tour like 10 years ago or whatever. And, and then they stayed on that tour for 4 years and then like, let's record some new albums.
Right.
I'm just glad that they stuck with it because I always try to give bands the benefit of the doubt. Like you never know when they're going to surprise you. And this is one of those ones that pleasantly surprised me overall.
Yeah. I think that's a good take on it.
Anyways, if people watching this I'm sure everyone's got their own opinion on this album and it seems to run from great to terrible, but feel free to drop some comments in and let us know what you think and
please do
what you think of the band in general, how you got into them. That's another thing that I think Blackout was the first album I heard. I remember hearing Ted play the tape in the car. And then the first album I actually bought was In Trance, though. I mean,
oh, really?
because
Good choice.
he had all the ones that were like, Blackout and Love Drive. And
yeah.
So I wanted to get one that he didn't have so that we could, pool our resources basically. And that was the first one that came up. So
yeah, I think the first one I bought was Blackout. I'm pretty sure, but I have to admit, the thing that really, I guess, hooked me and that I remember the most is that, this will sound weird, but the video to Rock You Like a Hurricane, I remember when that came on MTV, and it was like, it was so amazing compared to everything else practically everything else that it was. I think it even got some rotation. Like it
did. I remember seeing that on MTV, and I didn't have MTV. I would just be like visiting someone's house, and they'd have it on and be like, "It's the Scorpions! What the hell?"
And it's a pretty lo-fi video by today's standards, or by any standards maybe, but it was just like, it was so perfect for the song and everything. I thought I really liked it.
So yeah, anyways, if you guys haven't subscribed, please subscribe. And we're going to try to do these joint reviews for some of the bigger albums that come out this year. So look forward to that. We've already got, I think Creator is coming up in June, and
looking forward to that one.
Yeah, maybe Megadeth when that comes out. I'm sure we've got some opinions on that.
Some trepidation about that one. It could be great, though. It could be great.
It could be great. You never know. Maybe Dave will surprise us.
Yep.
So anyways, until next time, this is Dan from The Plague, signing off. Stay metal.